So being a sort of creative kid who loved to write and draw, I made a ton of stories and a ton of OCs over the years. There's this one specific story I made back then that I've always looked at very fondly. Starting back to when I was 9 or 10 and it continued all the way through middle school is when I sunk a lot of time into, even if it was kind of a mess and didn't always make sense. For today's video, I wanted to redraw some of the characters that were important to the plot, while also trying to make sense of the storyline. Honestly, I've just really missed drawing these characters and I wanted to revisit them. These first three girls I'm drawing were the main characters: Sunshine on the left, Snow on the right, and Liz in the middle. The whole story revolved around that strange situation these girls would always get themselves into. It was like a curse. There was always supernatural beings and the overall villains attacking them for like literally no reason. At least not at first. In the first book they appeared in, they were about 11 or so, and by the third and last book they were about 13 or 14. They kind of aged as I did. Sunshine and Snow were adopted into Liz's small family, being only Liz and her single mother Rose. And Sunshine was this cheery, bubbly one who could sometimes be a little bit of a scaredy cat, while Snow was the bravest one that didn't take nonsense from anyone. Out of the three, I would say Liz is the main girl. I loved her, and the story really followed whatever she did. She was kind of this weird girl. She had this book, I remember. It was kind of like Gravity Falls, and she always seemed to get her and her sisters into these trouble, because she had like this unending curiosity, and she just always get everybody into trouble. I also forgot to mention that these three plus Rose, their mom, were originally cats. I love cats, and almost all of my books from childhood were about cats. And I ended up changing them to people when I was like 12 or 13. But like all of the old story, they were cats for. Right off the bat in the first book, Liz makes friends with two ghosts and they get into this island and like terrible things happen. Just like a lot of just random story. But then Sunshine ends up getting possessed by these two evil little girls at a party and she like runs into the woods. And I think Liz and Snow were also possessed. I'm pretty sure. I didn't explain it very well. But all three of them, they end up falling off a cliff and surviving miraculously, which is actually really kind of weird, because the weird thing about me when I was a kid is I love drawing my characters falling off of cliffs. Like, I have so many drawings, so many just like, I would cut off the story just to make a character fall down a waterfall or a cliff, and I would draw them falling off the cliff or like at the bottom of it. They always survived, I think. Maybe not actually, but it was just a weird thing I always did. Like, I have so many drawings. But yeah, they survived miraculously. And while everyone considers it to be a miracle and like, wow, they're alive, Liz swore she saw someone help them. It seemed to be like magic. This person used magic to help them. And after a lot of convincing, she convinces her sisters to go out at night into the woods with her, because that's just how she is. They sneak out at night and, surprise, surprise, they get completely lost. This arc lasted for a very long time. Like, a large part of the first book is them just being in the woods, which is actually really impressive, because my stories back then, they did not stick to one thing. The story would be over. It was like episodes. They would not last with just one whole storyline. They end up being low-key stalked by this figure, but never really noticed somehow. They do notice some weird magic things happening in the woods, and they end up being helped by a wolf to get home safely. They end up finally seeing this figure and who it was, but I'll explain that later. Liz's curiosity continues to grow as strange things continue to happen. Stuff like snowmen turning to life, evil tornadoes, and like mermaids. I should also mention that 90% of the characters in this series I wrote were girls. There's only like 4 male characters I can name off the top of my head, one of them is really named the Handsome Man, who was a major villain. There was an alternate universe version of him, which was named the Ugly Man, who wore a bag on his head. And there was this massive ripped baby, and this really badass looking flower. And that's pretty much it, and they're all villains. I think their dynamic was low-key inspired by the Powerpuff Girls. Probably not intentionally, but it kind of seems like it is, because I loved the Powerpuff Girls as a kid. And like, like Rose, the single parent, and then Sunshine kind of reminds me of Bubbles. Snow of Buttercup, and Liz kind of reminds me of Blossom, but only because she's kind of like the leader character, I guess. Probably not as much personality-wise. All three of the sisters did get along well for the most part. Sunshine could be a little bit, I guess, overly cheery and like it doesn't always match the situation, which got on people's nerves sometimes, but her bright personality is what made her so lovable. Snow could be a bit blunt sometimes, even if she doesn't necessarily mean to. She was actually originally the mean one, but it didn't last very long because I liked her a lot, and she just wants what's best for her sisters. Even if she can be too honest sometimes, and she just kind of pick on them sometimes, but I love her. While Liz got them into some situations, they still loved her, of course, and enjoyed their adventures, no matter how traumatizing they sometimes were. She was just a girl with a strange obsession about weird things. It's who she was, you know? They only fell down like one cliff with her, okay? While the story mainly followed what Liz was doing, especially later on, her sisters are always present by her side supporting her. I love these three. They're very wholesome for the most part. There's a lot of horrific stuff that happens while they were cats especially, but they were always together, so it was wholesome. Sorry if explaining this is a little confusing at all. It's confusing for me. These books are all over the place, and I'm trying to avoid telling you too much about other characters before I draw them in the video. Okay, so while I still have time, I'm gonna read some of the pages of this book so you can kind of see what I have to decipher here, because it's kind of a mess. Okay. Chapter 4. This house is beautiful. I know. Wow, look at my room. Let's go dolphin riding. Splash, splash. This time don't pick a shark. I won't. Zap! It was raining and lightning. Zapped! Rose. She sank in the water. Mommy! Snow jumped in. Zap! She got struck by lightning. Liz, you stay here. I get them. Minutes passed. Sunshine didn't come back. Sunshine? Sunshine! I know you're in there. She's probably gone too. Liz cried and cried. The next day she woke up and she was soaked. Mom, I'm awake. No answer. She's gone. I forgot. She went to the water and she saw a skeleton. Oh, it's probably supposed to be. Ah! I don't know. This must be Mom's skeleton. Liz cried all over again. But if this is Mom's skeleton, where is Snow and Sunshine's? Liz walked to the back of the house where she saw her mom hula dancing, P.S. and her sisters. Then Rose turned around and said, ... Wanna dance? But I thought you were dead. It was a joke. Okay. First of all, I like how my teacher wrote 12 out of 12 star wow on the page I drew of them getting struck by lightning. Jesus Christ. And then, like, what kind of mom lets their kid sit in the rain and cry all night because it's just a joke? That's so messed up. Like, what do you mean? I was just joking. Like, your daughter was, she thought you were dead. She cried in the rain. That's so morbid. Oh my god. Okay, okay, so now we have that wonderful reading done. I'm going to talk about the drawing now. I wanted it to be more colorful and whimsical feeling, just to have like that childhood kind of, like how I pictured it to look when I was a kid. I've been trying my best to get better at backgrounds and making colorful scenery. I was originally going to draw them sitting on the ground, but I had to change it to a bench because it just didn't look right. No, I tried fixing it, but it would not turn out right. So I was like, you know what, bench. Coloring this was a bit of a challenge because I actually there's not much drawings of them colored at all. And if they were colored, they were cats. So I didn't really know I kind of had to remember what I thought they looked like as a kid, and I think I got it pretty accurate. But it's hard, it was hard to try to like go back in my head and remember what I pictured them as. And with that, they're done! I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. It's one of my favorites of the three, if not my favorite. They look so cute, I love the colors. For this next drawing, I chose a character who was kind of in the background for a big part of some of the books, but she ended up being pretty important to the big part of the story too. Her name was Teraki, which is actually a different name on every single page, but I ended up settling on Teraki. She has been in the story forever, longer than I thought she was. She was back in it when they were all still cats. Her design, I remember, was inspired by a character in Dear Dumb Diary, but literally just because of the hair. And she actually started off as a villain who attacked the girls and their mother for, like all the other villains, for literally no reason. I never explained why, but she just did. But then she was like losing the fight with them, and they all just became friends. This whole page just explains it, I think. Ha, yeah, when the evil ghost got up, everyone swined on the ropes going towards evil ghost. No, I won't be evil anymore. Promise you won't. Yes, I just want a slice of cake. Ow, here, yum. Friends? Friends! Who made it? Me, Rose. Thank you, you're welcome. Wow. This book, especially the beginning of it just does not make sense. After that, there isn't much important story, like in the whole half of the book, until it gets to when I was about 13, and the girls get lost in the woods. Because, like I said, there was a wolf that helped them in the woods, and this was Tereki, because she was a werewolf. She could change into a wolf whenever she wanted to, and I think the only reason why I made her a wolf was because I used to draw with sharp teeth, and I wanted to excuse the reason why I drew her with sharp teeth, because there was never no reason, I just wanted sharp teeth on her, and that's why she was chosen. She helps them get back home, and she plans on just running off and changing back into a person so she can continue hiding her secret. But the next character I draw exposes her to the group, showing everybody that she is a werewolf. What crazy. After that, she doesn't show up for a long time, not until the next book where it shows her backstory, but I ended up changing it right after I wrote it all in that book. And so I'll explain a changed version. Tereki is an orphan that lives in an orphanage with a ton of other girls. Or at least she did until she died and became a ghost. She's always been a werewolf, but she's always hidden out of fear of how other people would react. She befriends this young girl who is kind of a loner. She's kind of a problem kid and isn't seen as a very nice kid at all. But despite this, they grow really, really close. And they truly care for each other, and they're like sisters. They're very inseparable, and this is until they get into a misunderstanding with this girl thinking Tereki was bullying her along with all the other girls, despite Tereki's efforts trying to explain that she has no part. She doesn't even know what's going on. It's all pointless because this girl is kind of stubborn, and she runs off into the road out of just pure rage, and she doesn't pay attention to the cars rapidly approaching. Tereki tries her best to stop her, but can't in time, and as time passes on, she just feels more and more guilty for the loss of her friend. Eventually, she goes to this sort of magical species that I used to call spirits. They have the ability to take on human form to blend in better, but they're really, really powerful. She goes to the dark spirit, who are the morally good ones. Well, the light spirits are the bad ones and dark spirits are the good ones, but she begs him to restore her friend, and this dark spirit, who's went by the human name Connor, warns her that doing this would require for him to take her life away from her, and long story short, she does sacrifice herself to become a ghost wolf lady and to help her friend. So yeah, I probably missed some stuff, probably a lot of stuff, but that's the gist of it. For this drawing, I wanted to keep the blues I've always imagined her with, but I changed her outfit drastically. It was very plain and it wasn't giving her at all. I didn't like it. I also had a lot of fun with her hair. It was kind of a pain, but it's a very interesting texture. I didn't know how to put that texture into this drawing, this new style. So, but I think I did it good. I do. And for the background, it's just some simple trees. There she is! I'm really happy with how she turned out. This is probably my second favorite. I like this one. For this last character I'm drawing, her name is Teresia. She actually has two separate whole books I wrote as a kid because I just loved her. She was my favorite. She is the creepy figure in the woods, and also Tereki's former best friend. I know I said those three girls in the beginning were the main characters, and they are, but Teresia became a major part of the story, and I would say that she became one of the main characters as well. While she was almost entirely written when I was 13 to 14, she actually showed up way before all the other characters were even thought of. Way in the beginning, they had a whole different a main character. The girls weren't even a character. Tereki wasn't a character. The main character back then ran into Teresia in a creepy old house, and Teresia just ran away, and that was the end of it. That was the whole thing. So the girls get lost in the woods, and they're followed by this figure, the same figure that Liz claimed helped them when they fell. This was Teresia. She kind of watches over them when they're lost, not only to make sure they're safe, but just out of curiosity. When they finally get out of the woods, Tereki is exposed as a werewolf by magic. This was Teresia. Tereki never told her she was a werewolf, and she hasn't even seen her in years. But Tricia somehow knew, and this whole interaction between them kind of introduces us to Tricia, this magical, kind of scary, kind of mean 13-year-old girl. Her arms and legs are covered in this weird purple swirls, and she's like very, very powerful. She's this mysterious, like once again, powerful girl. She's a lot more complex than a lot of the other characters in the story, and she's got kind of this mischievous personality. She can be pretty moody and stubborn at times, making it well known if she wasn't enjoying something, and when she was provoked she will just lash out and threaten people. But she was also really productive, and she was very loyal to the girls. Her kind of purpose for being around them was to keep them safe from all this weird cursed stuff that keeps happening. But because of that, because of her power, it has a reverse effect. It causes more things to happen because people kind of want her power. Her and Liz especially have this really close bond. They spend a lot of time together, and Tricia does open up to her quite a bit. And Liz has this curiosity that draws her to Tricia because of her mysterious nature and just the powers. So they're like besties. Her and Tricia are like really, really close. Throughout the story, Tricia has a lot of character development in her realizing her actions have consequences and just being generally nicer to people. She literally attacks both Snow and Rose in the very beginning. She was kind of ruthless. For her backstory, I actually kind of explained quite a bit. She was in the orphanage with Tereki. They're best friends. They fight. She dies. When she's brought back to life, there's no one around except for the spirit, Connor, which, a side note, I actually think it's really funny. He just looks like some normal guy when I drew him in his human form. He doesn't look like he's, like, powerful or anything. I might end up changing that later if I ever work on this story again. But yeah, Tereki was too afraid to face her, so she's not anywhere to be seen. Tricia has no clue that Tereki even saved her. She doesn't even know what happened. Connor has no clue what to do with this kid that he was just randomly thrown at him, so he just kind of lets her tag along and until he can find a home for her, which actually never happens. She ends up getting super sick, like fatally, and Connor can't help her, and so in order to spare her life, he does something that's very unheard of with spirits. He splits his power and gives her half, making her super powerful and being able to survive this sickness, but this does make him significantly weaker. But together they're like super, super powerful. Connor and this other spirit named Henry fall in love. Slay! First gay OCs! In Loki, they adopt Tricia. Tricia and Tereki never really improve their friendship. Tricia has no clue, like I said, that Tereki saved her. And I never really got to that part or anything. I ended the story at book 3, so it never got to that. Tricia learns how to control her powers and just tends to wander around until she finds something to do, and that's why she finds the girls in the woods. And here is all of them again. Once again, sorry if this is confusing at all. I was young, okay? But there are so many other characters in this story, so if people actually do see this and enjoy this, I could totally do more, or maybe even dive even deeper into these characters, since I didn't really get to go too crazy on explaining their stories. Or I can always go to the stories I'm writing now too. That's always something I could do. Anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe or follow me on Instagram for more art stuff. I'm trying to get better at posting here more. But yeah, bye for now.